He definitely doesn't pay attention to stuff like that. Like I think he was just vibing on that hometown, and then like he didn't pick up on any negativity. I don't think he like reads the room at all. Um, but also he could just be playing dumb because he doesn't
Is
want
he dumb?
problems.
Yeah.
Is he playing dumb?
He
Or
could
is
be a
he
little
dumb?
dumb.
Hello. Welcome back to Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown. I'm Brianna, your Bachelorette relationship analyst. If you love getting into the nitty gritty of the drama and unpacking the relationships, this channel is for you. As you can see, I have two very special guests with me today, my good friends Rachel and Glenn. I met them both in high school. We all did theater together, and we've been friends ever since. So, would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
I mean, I don't know if I can add anything on to that introduction, but I'm Rachel, and I very much did theater with Brianna. Yeah, we've been friends for a while, long time.
I'm Glenn. I very much did theater and continued doing theater for much of my life. And I'll note that I'm new to the Bachelor Nation. I watched about half of the season before this one, so this is my first full season. So I'm excited to talk about
Wow.
it.
Well, you still have to watch next week.
Oh, that's right.
So.
Okay, so I'll take it back, but I can still fall off the wagon. We'll see.
All right, well, let's go ahead and just jump into it. So today we have the part one of the season finale of Gabby and Rachel season. So we open things up and we're at the rose ceremony from last week. Zach pulls Rachel aside for a little chit chat. They kind of discuss whatever happened between their fantasy suite interaction, and Zach basically ends up dismissing himself before Rachel can, and that's the end of the road for them. So what were y'all's thoughts on like what we think happened during the fantasy suites and like how this exit went down?
I mean, I know this is. I've been watching The Bachelor for a long time, so I know that this is very classic. I really thought it was going to be way more. Like I thought we were going to get way more out of that conversation. I think both of them were hesitant to talk about what actually went down in the fantasy suite because they were making it seem very general, and especially in the discussion, the live discussion, they wouldn't actually name it. They just kind of kept saying it was vibe, so just the vibe was off. But the morning after their fantasy suite, something happened. They were mentioning a specific conversation that was difficult, but now they're just being very vague in general about it. So I feel like the conversation wasn't satisfying for the viewer because I don't think we were getting the full story.
As somebody who's new to all of this, I don't know. Zach seemed really shaken up. I don't know, how often this kind of thing happens, but he kept saying like it was so inauthentic. It was so inauthentic, like comparing how Rachel was acting off camera versus on camera. But then in my mind, I'm like, well, if she's acting a different way off camera, I feel like that's the authentic Rachel versus like what you're seeing when she knows there's a camera there. Kind of made me, I don't know. I mean, it kind of made me think like, what's wrong with Rachel? Like, what is the side of her that he's seeing that we haven't seen? I don't know. Do y'all feel that way? Like, are you on a side or something? I mean, I'm not necessarily like against Rachel, but like by the way he was talking about how like disturbed he seemed, I was like, is there something to Rachel that we don't know?
Well, I will come right out and say I'm squarely on Zach's side. I've I've loved Zach since I first saw him on his first one-on-one. I just think I love his voice. I just love his demeanor. I really like him. And clearly you guys are not.
I was not saying that I like Zach. I actually had like he gives me the impression of like somebody like a boy in high school who would like have a crush on you and like you wouldn't really like him back, but he wants to give you a hug all the time. Like that's the kind of vibe I get from it. But you know, when in the Zach Rachel situation, I did feel like there must be something Rachel has done that we haven't seen that made me like feel for him. What do you think, Rachel?
I think, first of all, can we just be like absolutely honest and say we know nothing about Zach except for the fact that he used to watch planes take off growing up. That's it. That's all we know about him.
Fair.
It's the voice. The voice makes people fall in love with him. Um, I don't know if I'm on the Zach train with y'all. I think he was being so calculated and careful and kind of campaigning for the next Bachelor spot a little bit in his exit. I think he was I think she revealed something about maybe her political beliefs or her religious beliefs or something that he did not like. And now she's flipping it on her. I noticed that when he was just talking in his confessional, he said she brought up the age thing, and it was the age thing that bothered him. In his conversation with her, he never mentioned that. He never said, "Oh, it really bothered me when you talked about age." So
That's
was that just
true.
for us, or was that actually true? Because I feel like the fact that he didn't talk about it with her means it's not actually true, because she would have fought back with that. So I think he was being inauthentic himself. I think he was trying to come up with a, a reason to exit, but not make himself look bad. So he put it on her. And the whole time he was leaving, he was fake crying. That was all fake. I didn't buy a single drop of it. I'm not saying I don't like Zach. I'm just saying I don't. This whole, oh, he should be the next Bachelor, and this whole anti Rachel thing just because he said she was inauthentic and we have no proof to think otherwise. And also, of course, she's different when the cameras are off. Everybody would be. Like, that's not a reason to completely change your mind about someone. That's the point of the fantasy suites, to see them outside of the cameras. If they were the same, I'd be like, okay, so you're like that all the time because you're obviously different and a little bit more shallow in front of the camera. That'd be concerning if they were the same. Like, there's not more to you?
No,
That's really valid.
I
Yeah.
feel like I would like, I mean, in the ideal situation, they would be, like you said, they're more shallow in front of the camera. So off camera, they'd be less shallow. Therefore, like, was it reversed if he's so, I mean, again, we don't know what happened, but is it reversed if he's so taken aback by the way Rachel is acting off camera?
Yeah. And I agree with the whole, I did pick up on the whole fact that he didn't acknowledge the age thing in their little chit chat at the rose ceremony. And I also thought it was weird. Like, I get what you're saying about the calculated thing. Like, I thought it was weird that, like, I felt like in his confessional before the rose ceremony, he was like, oh, like, I feel really bad. Like, I want to see if I can turn this around. Like, I'm still in love with her. Da 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 da. So I'm going into the rose ceremony thinking, like, Zach's going to plead his case. He's going to let her know whatever he needs to know. And then before they even launch into the conversation, Zach's already speaking in the past tense. He's like, I really loved you. I really cared about you. And it's like, okay, so you seem to have, I mean, I don't think Rachel would have kept him either way, but it just seemed like he had decided already that he was going to exit. Like he had just made that decision on his own without any sort of conversation between the two of them. Um, he could have. I could see the Bachelor angle that he was potentially campaigning for. I didn't necessarily feel like he made that strong of an impression at the little live portion of the show. And that's me speaking objectively, not as someone who is a massive fan of his.
Yeah. No, I
um,
agree. I agree.
yeah. So I really don't know what he was up to, and I feel like we're never gonna get the full story, which is just like you said, like super unsatisfying as a viewer because there was some tea that happened, and they
Yes.
both are not spilling it, and they're the
Yeah.
only ones that know.
I think they've jointly decided that whatever they talked about does not need to be displayed in front of the people.
Yeah, because it's gonna make one of them look bad. Because like you said, if it was like a politics or religion thing on Rachel's part, maybe it's something that is a controversial opinion that other people wouldn't like. I don't know, or vice versa on Zaxxon.
Yeah. Or maybe it was just like a huge personal difference, or I don't know, or just something a bad habit of both of theirs that really bothered them. I don't know. Just clearly they've mutually decided that they don't want to talk about it in front of cameras, especially how like cordial they were with each other in live.
Do either of you guys think that potentially Rachel might have had in her mind, because it's very obvious that she wants to pick Tino.
Oh
Do you
yeah.
think she might have had in her mind, like, let me see if I can find a flaw in my relationship with Zach to go ahead and speed up the process of getting with Tino?
maybe subconsciously, if anything. Like, I think she's completely willing to overlook anything with Tino, and I think subconsciously that's going to automatically make her more pick apart the other guys a little bit more, just to kind of make Tino seem better in her mind. Because, like, I don't know whether she realizes it, but she's already fully in love with Tino, and she can't change that. So I think she's just being more critical of the other guys because something in her is telling her that it's not them. But she needs like a reason, especially since she's so concerned about not being Clayton, like not blindsiding them. So she needs a reason and not just being like, well, I decided I don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think some level of consciousness, that's what she's doing.
She seems so upset, like whenever one of the men would say like, oh, I just don't think I'm ready for this, or I don't think this is going to work out. I mean, do you think those feelings were genuine, or is that part of the act of convincing the audience that she doesn't have a preference for somebody?
I think that it was genuine in the sense of she wanted to be in control. I feel like she knows she's the Bachelorette and she wants people to leave when she wants them to leave. Like, I think she likes other people. Like, I don't think she's just kind of like, just only solely has feelings for Tino. Like, I think she's interested in the other guys, but I think it's also a case of like, okay, but I, in my mind, had you here up until this point, and if you exit before that, that's not part of my plan.
I can imagine it feels bad getting rejected over and over again too. Like, even if she didn't like them back, I just try to think about if I was on TV, how would it feel to have people constantly be like, I don't really want to be with you, no matter how pretty she is or whatever. Like,
yeah, especially when you're being constantly compared to a whole nother woman standing right there next to you for the whole season. Like, that has got to be really tough.
who is way more interesting than her, I think.
Whoa.
We not hating on any, tolerating any Bachelorette slander. Not that I want to slander Rachel, because I like Rachel. But I guess maybe it is the side by side. I'm like, wow, Gabby's so much more fun to watch on TV, I think.
I think Gabby's just less careful. I think Rachel's just very conscious of how she appears on camera and like is just trying to be very poised and very controlled. And I think Gabby's just a little bit more herself and more comfortable. I don't know if we like can have enough knowledge to say one's more interesting.
Are you feeling personally offended by that, Rachel?
I mean, as we share a namesake. I guess not namesake. I don't know where the name Rachel comes from. But I don't know. I try to always, like every season, and unless they do something bad or are making bad choices, I try to refrain from criticizing the host too much. Because like we don't know much about them, and they have a lot of, I think, production is controlling them a lot, and the editing is very much, I don't know. So I just try not to. I try to always like consider what we might not be seeing.
How stately of you.
Or Rachel of you.
No, I agree with that. I think Gabby's definitely like makes for better TV, but I feel like in real life, I don't know that I could say the one is more interesting than the other.
Mm-hmm.
I can say Gabby's outfits are better.
Oh yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
But this personality, I don't really know. So anyway, so then we go to the live show with Rachel and Zach. Like you said, Rachel, they just kind of chitter chattered very politely. Did we have any thoughts on their mini reunion?
I mean, it was boring.
Yeah.
It wasn't what we wanted.
Yeah.
They made a decision to be like nice to each other beforehand. I'm convinced of it, because that was just too cordial.
I agree.
Yeah. So then we go to meet the family with Rachel and Aven. And this is a whole to do, you know, Rachel is very excited to introduce Aven to her family. She's like talking him up before he gets there. And then he reveals to the friends that he might not be as ready for an engagement in the timeline that is required of him as he thought he was. Rachel's blindsided by this news. And they kind of have a conversation about it that doesn't come to a conclusion afterwards. So what do we think about like their date and their interaction with the family?
I think Aven and Rachel have a different or were meaning something different when they were saying ready to be engaged. And I think Aven meant he's ready to be engaged in terms of like life stage. Like he is open to an engagement in his life right now. But Rachel meant ready to be engaged with me, like for our relationship. And I think both of them just kept going back and forth. And I genuinely do not think Aven thinks he blindsided Rachel. I genuinely think he thought he was being honest because he just meant that he is looking for an engagement, just like she is, that they're on the same page with that. And I think when her friends asked it the way they asked it, he was like, oh, let me be clear. I don't necessarily like want to guarantee that I'm there with her because he hasn't even said he loves her yet, just falling in love with her. So he just, I think, wanted to be transparent and not make promises that he wasn't like feeling yet. But then when that got back to Rachel as he's not ready for engagement, I think it was a miscommunication. But the fact that they couldn't get over that miscommunication just says a lot about their relationship. So I think even though it was a miscommunication, I think it just shows that they really don't belong together.
Y'all need to help me understand, like, is every bachelor, like, what are the rules? Like, if somebody doesn't want to get engaged at the end, I mean, it sounds like, that's an option. Like, you don't have to propose. Can they just decide, like, can the bachelorette just be like, I don't want to get engaged to you, but I do choose you to keep dating you? Or can like the men decide that? Because I just felt like there's Gabby and Rachel both, like, there's just so much pressure to be like, you have to want to be engaged to me in a week to want to be with me, or like, you don't love me unless you want to be engaged to me next week. And I know this is the whole point of the Bachelor and Bachelorette is like they get engaged at the end, but just like the timeline is so short. I mean, even if somebody was in a real relationship outside of television for 3 months, I still don't think that's long enough to like be ready for an engagement. So, I mean, what is the problem with them not want, like, with the men not wanting to engage, be like, make the engagement at the end of the process? I mean, I don't know. Is that a crazy question? I know it traditionally ends that way, but is it kind of up to the Bachelorette what they want to do? Like,
They can do whatever they want, and I'm sure Brianna will second that. But the end of the day, the host or the Bachelor or Bachelorette does this show with the intention of getting engaged at the end. It's not like Bachelor in Paradise where it's kind of like they're just going on to see what happens. Like this singular, or I mean, in this case, two people are coming onto this show to see a whole survey of suitors and to finally find their person. They do not want to leave the show with just a significant other, just a partner. They don't. I mean, I guess it's still a partner if they're engaged, but like just a boyfriend or girlfriend. They do not want to just leave the show with that because they've gotten that before. This show is supposed to solve their problem, and their problem is that they haven't ever been able to make that next step with someone or to like get that happily ever after. So without that kind of guarantee at the end, it's kind of like, what was the show for then? If we're just going to leave this dating, who's to say we're not going to break up in 2 weeks? Why do this entire show to find your person and then not have that level of commitment at the end? So it's kind of like they know what they signed up for. So to then get that shock at the end that they're not ready for an engagement, it's kind of like you should have been open to that because you knew what this show was. And you knew that you were headed towards the end. You kept getting rows after rows after rows. You should have been thinking about this and where you were and being very communicative about that. Because sometimes, as long as they're on the same page, they're okay with it. They just have to be on the same page and talk about it beforehand. And I think that's what really hurt Rachel was that she thought Aven lied to her.
do they get paid more if they ended an engagement? Does anyone know that?
I mean, they get the ring.
Well, they have to either stay engaged for 3 years or get married to keep the ring.
Wow.
Yeah. The ring is on contract.
Oh.
But I will say that we've only seen 2 seasons in a girlfriend boyfriend type situation, and both were male leads. So I feel like obviously statistically it's a lot less likely for that to happen. And I think women leads especially are not as keen on that, for whatever reason. I feel like I saw a lot of people like online kind of talking about Rachel about like, oh, she's only in it for the ring. Like she doesn't really want a relationship. She just wants to walk away with the ring. What were y'all's like opinions on that kind of narrative?
Well, I think back to what she said in her like introduction in Clayton's season, and I mentioned this then, which is that she said she's not saying like she didn't say I'm looking for love or like I'm looking to fall in love with Clayton or something. She was like I'm looking to get engaged. So even then, it kind of felt like she was there for the engagement. Um,
I don't know if we need to say that like it's a bad thing though. And I know I'm like again riding for Rachel, and I promise I don't mean to say like make it seem this
I mean,
way.
you can ride for her.
No, it's not that I like it's not that I like I stand Rachel over like I like both of them. But like I do feel like Rachel gets a lot of hate because like I said, I think she's more controlled on camera and people read that as fake. And of course, like isn't she from Florida? Didn't she have the swamp date with Clayton? I think people
Yes.
just like made her. But like, here's the thing: some people really want marriage. They see so oftentimes like they see the marriage that their parents have, or they just like they see that as love. They see an engagement in marriage as the ultimate testament of love. And so when we say like, oh, does she want engagement or love? I feel like for a lot of people it's not mutually exclusive, and I feel like that's it for her. Her friends even said she wants an engagement, but in a way where it's like she wants that symbol of what this ultimate love is supposed to be. She's had boyfriends before, but she really, for her in her life, has envisioned this soulmate, this person who she can take that next step with and have that marriage with. And so it's not that she just wants the ring, it's just that I think what she sees is that is love, is being able to fully commit to each other. And that's what she's looking for. So I think saying engagement and marriage is a way of saying that. And I just don't think that it's one or the other. I think in just her mind, she might be the type of person that sees marriage as that symbol of the ultimate love. And so it's specifically that she wants, and not just like, oh, we're dating and oh, we're in love, but we're not married. Because it's like true love, I think, for some people is that final step of commitment to each other.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that. Um, I get the same vibe from her that I feel like she's committed both to the idea of a relationship, but she's also like at a place where her life where she's like, I know I'm ready to be married. This is what I came to do, and I don't want to like not do what I came to do. And like I feel I like, yeah, it's fun to like poke fun at Rachel, like, haha, but I feel like also like Gabby is on the same wave. You know what I mean? Like, two of Gabby's guys kind of just rolled out last week because they also weren't ready for an engagement. And when they came to her with that information, she was like, okay, we are no longer compatible. Like, this is not in my path as a bachelorette. And no one, I feel like, questioned that decision or like questioned, oh, is she only there for an engagement? Like, she only keeping Erich because like we think he wants to get engaged, which we'll chat about later. But yeah, I just feel like Rachel's kind of getting, I don't know, a little bit of like an unfair reading in a sense. But my only problem with her, like, I don't have an issue with like what her goals are out of this process or like what she wants to get out of it. I just didn't necessarily like how she was handling the conversation with Aven. I felt like she, rightfully so, was very emotional coming into the conversation because, like you said, Rachel, she felt like she was lied to, and that's a really like heavy emotion to feel like. Um, and I feel like she obviously didn't have enough time to process like what that meant, what that could have meant for her relationship with Aven. She just jumped right into the conversation, and I felt like as a result, she wasn't listening to him. Like I felt like he was trying to explain himself and say like, hey, like this is what I meant by that. Like this is where my feelings actually are with you. This is how committed I am to you. And she was just so focused on like, I feel like you've lied to me. I feel like you've blindsided me. And like I can totally 100% understand why she felt that way, but also she was not ready to have that conversation because she was not listening to him at all. And that was very frustrating to watch.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there was a certain point where she decided she was done. And I think particularly as soon as he said the phrase got caught up, you
Yeah,
could
she really
see it
picked that
fall.
apart.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could see it like she's done. And I think she had kind of made up her mind about what she thought went down. I think she just wanted him to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
So she wasn't going into that conversation with the intention to solve this issue
Mm-hmm.
or to come to an understanding. It was more of an intention for him to catch him and to get
Mm-hmm.
him to admit he lied and apologize. And when he was apologizing, but the fact that he was kind of going against what her version of things, she wasn't being productive in the conversation. So yeah, I will say that. I don't think she did her part in trying to come to an understanding with Aven.
Yeah. And she might not
I
have
really
wanted
don't.
to, but she could have also said that.
Yes. Yeah, no, like I said, I think she's already in love with Tino. So I think she was much more ready to let this go. And I think almost part of her was like not really wanting to see that he might not have meant it, because it's so easy for her if he did lie, because
Mm-hmm.
that's like, okay, we can shut it off. So yeah.
I felt bad for Aven in that conversation because I felt like I could tell he was getting frustrated trying to communicate, and she wasn't understanding. And then she was like, "Why are you yelling at me?" And he was like, I'm not yelling." Like, I felt like he kept having to backtrack. He didn't want to be like labeled or seen as the villain, because Clayton has definitely been villainized like this entire season. And I wonder if the men in this season, a lot of their actions and behaviors were thinking about, like, I don't want to do something that's going to make me the villain of next season. I mean, we obviously had a villain in this season, a mutually agreed upon one, um, but I do appreciate that, like, at the back in the live ceremony. I mean, it seemed like Rachel was in a much clearer headspace, and I felt like she, was much more understanding and ready to understand and listen, and was apologetic. So I think I think you're right, Rachel, about your observations, but I appreciated Rachel, apologizing and understanding that.
Yeah. I think she's more clear headed now because her and Tino have broken up.
Spoiler alert. This is a spoiler-free channel, ma'am.
It's not a spoiler, it's a prediction. It's a knowledgeable prediction.
That's what they want you to think, Rachel.
An
I mean,
educated
maybe the
guess.
twist is they end up together.
Yeah, okay, so she did, because I really zoned out during the live show, because that was another like mature conversation that I was like, this is boring. So she did apologize to Aven.
Well, so I've done that a little bit too. So actually, I'm not entirely sure she apologized, but she was very understanding, and she was very much like, you were just doing what was best for you. I was just doing what was best for me. Like, it's good to see you. Like, very much like peaceful and
Yeah.
understanding. So
I
I
feel
think
like she could have taken more accountability. Like, I
yeah.
would have really appreciated it if she went back and named, like, I was not ready to hear what you had to say. And we could not come to an understanding. And part of that is because I was not listening to you. I would have loved for her to have named that.
Yeah, I think she apologized for implying certain things and for the way she came off, but she did not apologize for not listening to him. And like, I think that was what she really needed to apologize for, because she didn't give him a chance to make his case. And she just kind of kept pushing this narrative onto him and picking apart his words to try to fit him and find an issue. And so, but I think Glenn made a good point, though. I do think the men this season, are very cognizant of the fact that Rachel and Gabby are beloved. I mean, Rachel less so. Rachel's getting, I think, a little bit more hate now. But at the beginning of the season, like, it was everyone hating Clayton and loved them, and was like, nobody needs to hurt these girls again. So I've noticed like a higher degree of men being on their best behavior, especially at the men tell all in these live conversations, because they all have all felt very cordial, felt very polite, felt very like the men are just automatically going into those conversations like, I see you, I hear you, I'm sorry for everything. And I think that's just what the conversation was. It was Aven apologizing again, reconfirming. He said, "Just so you know, I did love you, or I was falling in love with you. I was very like true about my intentions." Just to repeat that. And she was like, "Yeah, I know. I'm just sorry it didn't work out, but not sorry that she didn't believe him." So
yeah. No, that is a good point. And let me tell you, that's super boring.
it is super
It is super
boring.
boring.
Yes.
I'm here for the drama. Like this men
Yeah.
tell all has been one of the most boring we've seen in seasons.
Yeah. Especially because Hayden didn't come.
And Chris.
I mean, I think we knew Chris was not going to come.
Not me.
He already got booted out of the house twice. He doesn't need to come back.
If I were a producer, I would have handwritten him an invitation.
I think the most dramatic person in the mental all was Roby, and who even was he? Yeah, no, everyone really has just been like so nauseatingly nice. Like that's not what we sign up for.
Yeah. Speaking of nauseatingly nice and pleasant, then we go to the meet and greet for Erich and Gabby to meet Gabby's family. Kind of the same crew that was there during like Clayton season when we met during Gabby's hometown. Erich seems to get the stamp of approval from everyone. They're just as in love as ever. Any thoughts on this day?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just so clear that they're like in the honeymoon phase. And let's be real, Gabby ended up with Erich. Like she did not choose him. Now she may have chosen him in the end, but she did not choose him. And so I think they're already kind of in this mindset where we're all like, this is it. There's no other choice, so we're just gonna make this work. And I think they just both like want it so bad. So they're just really like again on their best behavior and like I kind of think already acting like they're on their honeymoon, like they're engaged and like wrapped up in it because they just want it to work so bad. They want to be. I'm not saying they're not in love, but they want to be in love. And I think Gabby's family wants it for her, and I think they're aware of the fact that there's no other guys, and so it would kind of suck if they didn't like him. So it's not that. So like I think they go into it knowing like, okay, for Gabby's sake, we need to like this dude because he's all she's got, and if we don't like him, she's gonna be devastated. So I think just everyone again was on their best behavior, and that's fine.
It's just kind of so hard to know too. Like, okay, you meet this guy for an hour tops. Like, I mean, yeah, I like him. What's not to like? I mean, there's no like obvious red flag for some reason that they can't get married. So like, sure, like, I mean, it's not really enough time to, I mean, unless he was just like out the gate, like a really huge jerk. I mean, it's not really any significant amount of time to know whether or not it's a good fit. I just have such trouble with the timing of it all personally. I take things so slow, I feel like. And am so like would be so afraid to like move too fast or like operate thinking I feel one way, but really it's just me wanting to feel that way or something like that. So it's hard to understand or like get into the mindset of people who are at that point in such a short amount of time. Like, are Erich and Gabby in love? Or do they just really want it? Or do they really want it and they are in love? And it just, I don't know. I feel like Gabby was convincing herself that some of Erich's red flags were signs that he just really loved her and she just really wants to feel loved. So she was willing to accept that.
What were his red flags, you feel like?
He's so insecure.
Like the conversation they had about like he was like, I just feel like you're cheat. I mean, he was like, when you're with these other guys at these fantasy suites, I feel like it's cheating. And that's the process. Like, why are you saying that to her? What is she supposed to do? Like, you signed up for this process, you know what was going to happen, and she has to continue to do this. And she's not going to, this is not the Bachelor, and Erich is not the Bachelor. Like, it's the Bachelorette, and Gabby is the Bachelorette. So I feel like that was a big issue when it first happened, and the other men were still in the picture. And then it dwindled down to it was just Erich. And then I felt like she was kind of rationalizing it like, well, he really loves me. Like he's showing me he loves me, he cares about me, he's committed to me. Did y'all get that sense? Is that just me?
I didn't necessarily pick up on it when watching. I think because maybe I was like her family and I just wanted to be really happy for her because it was really disappointing. It's always really disappointing when like the lead is left with limited choices by default. And I do like Gabby so much that I was just kind of like, I really want this to work for her. So when she was saying that stuff like, oh, it's too good to be true, like I really love the way he loves me. I was like, I was right there with her. I was like, okay, yeah, this sounds good. But hearing this analysis objectively now, I'm like, it could have played a part in it. So do you guys think that like part of her maybe talked herself into choosing Erich and like maybe because I really thought the final two for her would be Erich and Jason. I thought that was gonna be her final two.
I mean, I think it was technically, right?
I guess I just don't count that because like Jason and Johnny left the same episode.
Yeah. But I think yeah, I mean, Johnny would have definitely been the third to go if he hadn't like self-eliminated, if he hadn't just said like, here's my ticket to paradise, so I've got it. I'm good. But I think I wasn't surprised, and I really think like she would have chosen Erich in the end, even if Jason had stayed. But I really think she like wants it to be Erich because he's the most vulnerable, and I think she needs someone who's vulnerable, but he's almost like too vulnerable. And I don't mean to say that vulnerability is a bad thing, but I think he dumps his feelings onto her because he doesn't know what to do with them. And then when she doesn't know what to do with them either, he's like, well, yeah, I just wanted to like tell you my feelings. And I think it's like he's I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be healthy for her in the long run. If he doesn't really see like a point in like he just wants to basically have her be a sounding board for him. And like, oh yeah, I just needed to tell you my feelings so that I felt better. But when she's like, well, I don't know what to do with you dumped these on me at a very bad time and I don't know what to do with it. Like when he just brought her to the bridge just to say, hey, by the way, I'm feeling very jealous right now and I really don't like what you're doing. When she's like, this is literally the show. I have to do this. So now I know that you feel bad about it, but I have to go still do this. So what do you want me to do? And I think that's going to be their relationship. And I think she likes that he's open because she wants someone like that. So it's like she's trying to convince herself that, oh, this is what I want. I can't be upset about this because this is what I want. But at the same time, it's like a little too much. And it's a little like the way he's doing it. He is being open and honest with her, but the way he's doing it is not productive and not necessarily the healthiest. I don't know if I'm also like not like a therapist or anything, so like I don't know like what would be a healthy way for him to like share his feelings without expecting anything from her. But I don't know. I think I told Brianna this like when that original fantasy suite happened. It's like he reminds me a lot of Greg from Katie's season. Is that he needed her to help him with his feelings. Not like I want to come to an understanding. It was like, okay, here, let me just like dump all my feelings onto you so you can help walk me through this and make me feel better. And I think that was like what he intended. It's like, oh, I'm going to come out on the bridge. I'm going to dump all my feelings onto her and she's going to say something to make me feel better. Or she's going to like walk me through this and help me through this experience. It's like, that can't be her role through the entire relationship. So I think she wants it because she wants someone who's open, but it's not the right type of openness.
No, I see that. I definitely see that 100%. But I will say, I think maybe, hopefully, it could be buffered in the real world because I feel like right now he does just come to her with his feelings. And this is something that, like, I feel like there are a lot of instances that maybe either wouldn't have happened or would have happened in a much more filtered perspective had he been able to call up a friend and been like, hey, like, this is how I'm feeling about Gabby right now. Like, this is what's going on in my head. And the friend could have been the one to say, dude, you're on the Bachelorette. Like, you need to chill out. And then he could have maybe approached her from a much more like filtered perspective. So I think maybe, I mean, obviously we don't really know him. We don't know what type of support system he's going to have outside of this when they are probably in the real world together. But I think that might be a unique characteristic of just being so isolated on the show. Like he's literally sitting with his thoughts all day long. So when you're in that place, of course, if you have no one else to tell you, hey, this conversation is not a bad idea, you're just gonna tell yourself it's a good idea and then you're gonna act on it.
That's a
No,
good.
I think that's because this definitely like this type of format definitely like emphasizes a lot of those things. I think what though would not necessarily be different is he going to be able to help her with her feelings?
True.
Like, and I don't think we're seeing that with him. I think he takes any time she feels bad as like a personal insult to him in their relationship, and he's not ready to do the same thing for her that he's expecting her to do for him. And I think that's going to continue in the real world, and that's going to be an issue because she needs support too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very fair.
I don't think they end up together either, so I think they also break up. I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. It was going to be Nate. If Nate didn't have a daughter, it was going to be Nate. And honestly, it might still be Nate. I'm really part of that wild fan theory right now because I don't know if y'all have seen Nate's TikTok.
Oh, well, I saw the one you sent me.
Nate is down bad for Gabby. There's even a TikTok that he has that he put up after he was eliminated, like after that episode aired. He put up and said like, it was a TikTok about still thinking about her, but not her specifically. It was like still thinking about her, and then because she's like, and then a bunch of like, I don't know. But the caption was, "If you know, you know." So I think they reconnected after the show.
Woof.
That's my theory. Maybe it's just I've always been the one with the Bachelorette to be like, it's not over till it's over, you know? Like I still thought Katie and Andrew Spencer were gonna get together. So I'm holding out hope, but he's really like posting some TikToks about really still being in love with her. So we'll see. We'll see.
You look really unsure, Glenn. What's your take?
I don't. It's all so much. Like, you know, it's anything's possible. Like, you know, they could be boyfriend and girlfriend. They could not. They could get engaged. They could break up. Someone else could come into the game. I was trying to think like, well, was it in the tell all or whatever that they had Nate come and talk about that experience? And I was like, did he say anything in that to indicate that that could have happened? And then I was thinking, did he say anything to indicate that that definitely didn't happen? I would love that twist. I would love, because that would be the most interesting thing that's happened in several episodes. If Nate come back and Gabby was like, I was wrong, I'm ready for it, let's do it. And I really felt for Gabby when she had to break that, or had to tell him that she just wasn't ready, because like it was so sad, because it's like it's just like we're in a different stages of life kind of thing, and it's really sad when you meet someone and you really like them, and there's nothing bad about them, but it's just like out of your control whether you're ready to be together. So you know what, Rachel, it's the first I'm hearing of it right now, but I have decided that I am going to believe in that, and I'm going to root for that.
Yay! I mean, it probably won't happen, but honestly, if a reconnection was ever going to happen, this would be it. Because typically reconnections are impossible because at the end of the day, they have to get over the fact that they were not chosen compared to like a group of other guys or other girls. Like they have to get over that fact. If they're eliminated early, how are they going to reconnect with someone who did choose other people over them? But the thing with Gabby and Nate is, if he didn't have a daughter, he would have been the one. They broke up for no other reason. And so like it wouldn't be this knowledge of, oh, she chose other guys over me. He wouldn't have to get over that. He has nothing to get over in regards to that. So their reconnection is actually possible. And honestly, in the real world, she would have time to adapt to that role with his daughter and time to get to know it and ease into it. And I think maybe there's like knowledge of that. If she doesn't end up with Erich, that option is still there, especially if he's still very much feeling her. She's seeing those TikToks, that's for sure. So if she's not still with Erich, I mean, how do you not?
Unless he's the Bachelor. Because I feel like he was also
that's also
kind of getting that edit a little bit at the men tell all.
If he had,
because
the thing though is the Bachelor's already been chosen. If he was currently being set
That's
up to
true.
be the next Bachelor, would production want him posting TikToks of still being in love with Gabby?
That's very true. They would definitely be
Be like, no, you're single now. You're the Bachelor.
Well, I don't know. Hopefully some good tea will come out of this very sleepy season.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So then we catch back up with Rachel and Tino to introduce Tino to Rachel's family. This is a little more, everyone's feeling a little bit more cautious during this meet and greet after what happened with Aven. Tino also seems to get the stamp of approval from the family. So what did we think of this meet and greet?
I was surprised that Tony wasn't harder on him. Because I wasn't impressed by him. I think he was not being super on point with his answers to the questions, and he just kept going back to like the same, feels like buzzwords. Like he kept just saying, like, and especially when the friends asked, like, or when she said, "Go ahead and tell them our love story, like our story." He's like, "Well, I came in on a forklift, and yeah, it was just crazy after that." And then when the friends asked, like, what was their favorite moment, Rachel spoke up. And she's like had to remind him. He like didn't know what she was talking about. And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And when she said, "Oh, when you told me you were falling in love with her," and he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm falling in love with her." Like it just kept like being very like, he was just so focused on making sure like he was saying what they needed to hear. And like when Tony, sorry, Tino and Tony, it's hard. When Tony, her dad was asking, like, she's very adventurous, she likes all this stuff. He was like, "Yeah, so I just want to be very clear. I love your daughter." It's like, no, that's not what we were talking about. And he just kept going back to that go-to, like, okay, as long as I tell them I really like her and I want her to be happy, they'll love me. And I just think, I don't know. It felt very shallow and very like he wasn't really being authentic about like his relationship with her, just kind of saying what he felt like needed to be heard.
I kind of felt like that was Rachel's approach when she met his family. I mean, well, and I don't think that she deserved how hard they were on her. And I can imagine how intimidating and difficult that was. But I also felt like when his dad was like, "What specifically do you like about him?" And she was just like, "I've just never met anyone like him." Like she says that about everybody. So of course you haven't met anyone else like this one specific individual. But so I kind of feel like, or maybe it's like a nerves thing. I mean, maybe it's like when you're the one in the hot seat, you like forget all of the things you like about that person, all the things that you've done. Maybe that's what happened with Rachel. Maybe that's what happened with Tina. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like we've seen enough of Tino this season I feel like I can confidently say, like, this is just him. Like, this is just who he is. Like, I thought the conversation with the mom was hilarious because she was like, "Oh, what do you guys have in common? Do you have enough in common to sustain a relationship?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't expect her to go surfing with me." That was it.
Yeah.
Like, not only did he not answer the question, did not elaborate on apparently all the hobbies they have in common, he actively named a hobby that they did not have in common. So I was like, this is just Tino, just out here. And I felt like he was pulling the same lines, like, because the mom, very rightfully so, was like, "Listen, I'm concerned about, your family not liking my daughter. Like, that's a real life issue." And he just kept falling back on, like, "Well, I like her, so they'll like her. She'll come to the beach with us, and that'll be it." And it's just like, there's nothing, like, I just feel like Tino lives in Tino world. And like, I feel like he thinks that like whatever he says is gold. And like no one should ever question him because he's Tino and he said it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised by how, because like I felt like the conversation between like Tony and Aven, like I felt like Aven's just as likable as Tino, but I felt like Tony kind of went in a little bit more. And maybe this was just editing. Like I'm sure we didn't see the whole conversation between Tony and Aven, but I felt like Tony was explicitly asking him about more logistical things. Like he was asking him about like, Rachel works here, she does this. Tell me about your side of things. Like he was like really trying to map out their future. And so seeing that made me think that he almost went in wanting to like him more. Like he was trying to like give him reasons for Tino to sign up and like give him a reason to like him, if that makes sense. Like tell me some reasons why this logistically can work. And then he
Yeah.
went on to explicitly say, like, I really like you. And so I don't know if that came from just seeing how crushed Rachel was the day before from feeling blindsided by Aven, and it was kind of like maybe a Gabby situation where the family was like, well, if Aven doesn't work out, Tino has to work out. So like, let's really try to make sure this works out. Or if it was just like a genuine, like they just saw it with Tino more.
No, definitely. I did notice that like that there was a different level of degree of conversation with Tino versus Aven. I mean, even like Aven, like Tino, Tony, Tony went in hard. Like first question, tell me something that's gonna make me remember you compared to the next guy, and like that's like already wow, okay, but like he was more willing to just accept whatever Tino said. And he did make a point to say like he liked Tino. I think there's also a different mindset though going into it. I think he made a good point about like he kind of is aware now that her thing with Aven is probably not gonna work out. So we need to make sure that she's not left with no one. But also when she presented Aven to them, she was all positives. Like, this man is everything I'm looking for. We're on the same page. He gives me all the support I need. So you kind of go into it then, okay, she's lost in Wonderland with him. Let me find out the reality of it. Let me pick it apart because I need to bring her down. With Tino, though, she brings him in and says his family doesn't like me, like already starting with a problem. So it seems a little bit more realistic. So I think the mindset is more, she's already being realistic with him. So now let me just support her and like him. I don't have to bring her down back down to reality. So I think there's a little bit of a mindset there with being more on the offense because everything seemed perfect, sunshine and rainbows with Aven, and then more on the defense because she already has problems with Tino going into it. So there could be that difference there. But definitely he was harder on Aven than Tino.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about the difference between how Rachel presented the two men, how that might have affected how the family interpreted them. But I think that definitely probably played a role into it for sure.
Yeah. Can we talk about though, you mentioned this is just how Tino was, and I agree, like he's not good with his words, because I remember when after his hometown, and she's like feeling really upset that his family doesn't like her, and she's like, your family doesn't like me, and he just goes, yeah, so I'm in love with you. And she's like, okay, hold the phone. That's all I needed to hear. Like, he doesn't know how to talk and think about those complex things or complex feelings. And so he just kind of gives a little like the affirmation he knows to give. I don't think he's good with his words. I don't think words of affirmation is his love language. I think he's just kind of like, okay, what can I say that's going to make her feel better? I'm in love with you. Like, or I love you. Not saying that he's just saying it to make her feel better, but that's kind of like all he really knows how to say because I don't think that's his way of expressing himself.
I don't know though. I feel like there's a difference between being bad with your words and not listening. You know, because like at the fantasy suite, like when they were at the little rock at the rocks, and Rachel was like, "Let's talk about this again. Like your family does not like me," and then he has the audacity to turn around afterwards and be like, "She's upset, but I don't know why."
Right? No, yeah. I don't think he's a good conversationalist. I don't think he likes conversations about feelings because I don't think he's very complex. And so I think
Not at all.
whenever she starts talking about insecurities or like wants to discuss those more complex things, especially with his family not liking her, I don't think he knows what to do about that. Cause like he likes them and like he likes her. What is he gonna do about that? So I think he's just like kind of tunes it out. He's like, well, this is too complex for me. So
And that's gonna get really old. It's so incredibly fast.
because then
Like,
he's not a partner. He's not a partner
yeah,
in the hard things that they have to talk about. He's like a
yeah.
kid. He's like a kid you have to corner and be like, okay, listen to me talk about this. And we have to figure this out. And he just wants to go swing on the swing.
Because there's going to be increasingly more complex things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they get together in the long run, like his family not liking her, that's going to be the easiest obstacle. Because, like, they probably will like her. Like, they probably will go to the beach and have a day and, like, things will be fine, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's done. That's over. They're only going to have more and more issues if they were to stay together in the long run. And if he's already demonstrating that he's not able to address those head on, it's over. It's done.
Yeah. Just another reason that they're probably broken up at this point.
I do wonder what, like, when she was like, "You lied to me." I mean, I could definitely, like, I feel like he just tells her what she wants to hear. I mean, after his hometown, they walked out and he was like, "My parents adored you," and she was like, "They hated me."
Right?
And
Did you not read the room?
No, they loved you. And it's like, where were you, Tino? You can't convince somebody that their parents like them after they were grilled like that for however long. So I have trouble trusting anything he says. And I don't know if it's because of he doesn't know how to communicate his feelings, or he just wants to take the path of least resistance and he wants things to work out. So he's just like, what should I say, to make her feel better? Oh no, like, my parents adored you. Oh yeah, I'm in love with you. I don't know.
Yeah. He definitely doesn't pay attention to stuff like that. Like, I think he was just vibing on that hometown. And then, like, he didn't pick up on any negativity. I don't think he, like, reads the room at all. But also, he could just be playing dumb because he doesn't want problems.
Yeah.
Is he playing dumb?
He could be a little dumb. I mean, in the preview, you mentioned that, I cannot wait to see what goes down in the preview. And, like, did you guys notice his hair was longer? So this definitely happens after the engagement. But anyway,
you're picking up on all the signs.
But like, I think he I don't even remember what I was gonna say.
I don't really want to know.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, like, in the preview when she's like, you lied, every time the camera cut to him, he was just sitting there looking like he did not know what was going on. Like, he was like, I don't know. like he didn't know what he did. Like, so I don't know if he's playing dumb or if he just actually is not aware of things.
He's probably like, I can't just say I love you my way out of this. Like, I can't.
Right. He's probably trying to think of, like, okay, how do I say I love her in a way that's gonna, or just like trying to think of him, like, he said it and then it didn't work, and now he's like, okay, this has never not worked before.
Yeah, I can't wait. So then so we already kind of talked about Rachel and Aven in their final conversation. They break up. So then, did we have any other thoughts on that, or we kind of, yeah. Okay, so then we have our final date with Gabby and Erich, and they're chatting, they're catching up about nothing, and then they're kind of talking about excuse me, their next steps. And Erich Erich says, the kiss of death, as we have seen on this show, I just want to leave here and date you. And that, Gabby, that is it. She is upset. Kind of left on a bit of a cliffhanger. So what did we think about this date that they had?
I think he blindsided her. To be like this entire time, like, oh, I just want to be with you. I just want to leave here with you. I don't know if he ever explicitly said, like, I want to be engaged. So I can't necessarily say that he, like, lied or went back on what he said. But it was just very, like, he said everything but. Like, it was very clear, like, I want to be with you forever. Like, I'm so into this, like, all in. And then suddenly, now that there's no competition, it's like, oh man, I can't wait to date you. Like, whoa. And so I guess I can't really say he blindsided her because he really did never quite say that he's so, like, excited to be engaged. I think he kind of kept skating around that. But like, it feels like he kind of dialed it back a little bit. And so it's like, you were all in and now it feels like you're playing it cool. And you're just like, yeah, let's just see where this goes. And literally yesterday, you were like, you're my person, like, you're my soul. I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life with you. It's just a different vibe. And I could see being a little thrown off by that sudden switch.
I felt like maybe he didn't say explicitly marriage, but I think he was intentionally misleading her. Like, I think he didn't want to explicitly say because he knew that it would upset her. But then when it came time to face it and be like, well, I'm going to have to say something now, you know, he said it and she felt blindsided. And I felt like he did blindside her.
Yeah. And like you said, Rachel, I think that was really trifling that he waited until he was the last person left. Because he just kind of waited until Johnny and Jason kind of dug their own graves and exited the situation to be like, also I'm in that category too. So I also, though, on the flip side of it, thought it was hilarious when Gabby was just storming down the hallway and yelling at the producers, and he was just standing there, like watching her have a meltdown. I thought that was really funny.
He has a mullet. It's very shocking to me every time I see it.
It is.
Her hand is in that mullet every time. Like, it is deep inside. Like, I think she loves that mullet more than him. Like, she's like caressing that mullet. But you really you can never trust a person with a mullet.
Can't trust them.
Something about them, they don't know what they want in life. Can't commit to a hairstyle, can't commit to a girl.
So do you guys think that Erich will be able to turn it around? Do you think he'll be able to talk his way out of this and then get engaged? Or what are our thoughts? What are our predictions?
I think he's filling Gabby with way too many insecurities. I think she's someone who's going to question things. She's already kind of had to talk herself back into trusting him again after that whole bridge conversation, when he put her in a weird space emotionally. And so to kind of have this go back, like dip back down on the roller coaster again, I think she's not going to feel very confident and secure in this relationship, and she needs to feel secure because she needs validation. She needs, she's got this thing she keeps saying in the season where she thinks she's unlovable, or she doesn't need anything telling her that she's unlovable. And so I think if he's going to give her too much, or not enough validation in terms of how he feels and strengthen that, I think eventually it's going to be too much for her. Like, she's not going to get what she needs from him.
I almost feel like it maybe is a matter of not if he can talk his way out of it or like fix it, but like how desperate is Gabby to be engaged or married versus like, is she just willing to walk away from the process with not an engagement or with no one? Because I don't know what he could say to make things much better. But I just feel like it'll come down to whether Gabby decides to put up with that or decides not to. I'd love to see her decide not to, but I don't know. Would that make things more interesting? Probably not. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I think he's not willing to do the work to fix it, because if you guys noticed, he kind of reacted the same way in both circumstances. Just kind of like standing there and be like, well, what do you want me to do? And then eventually Gabby walks away. So rather than like, okay, let's have a conversation about that, he kind of just like lets her spiral. He just like, it shuts down and just like lets her work herself up and then walk away. And then he's just like, oh dang, she just walked away. It's like, well, you didn't do anything to keep her there. Yeah. You're not trying to have a conversation about this. So I think the only way it could be fixed is if either he's just like, okay, well, if she wants to be engaged, I'm just going to propose to her. Or she has to individually and by herself do the mental gymnastics to fix this. He's not going to do anything because he didn't do anything in the first one. He just kind of waited for her to get over it rather than being like, okay, hey, I recognize how that went wrong. Let's talk about this and really come to a better understanding. He just kind of like let her walk away, and then she came back the next day and he's like, okay, so we're good now? You kind of done what you need to do? He reacted the same way to this one. He just let her. He realized she was upset. He was like, oh, dang.
Even the chasing after her was half-hearted. Like, he came into the hallway and then he just stood there and watched her walk away and yell at the producer.
That was so funny.
She's a little too far now, so I guess this is it.
Yeah, which is not a good foundation for a relationship. You don't want a partner that's like just gonna leave you hanging when they cause you problems. Like, it's not like
Yeah.
it's a joint couple problem, like something external, like we don't know where to move, or like, something they're both interacting with. It's like he's literally bringing to her a problem that is his problem and delivering it to her and then exiting, like you said.
Yeah.
That's not a good foundation. And one thing, like you said, Glenn, like you're questioning if she's gonna walk away or just convince herself to stay with him. I feel like one thing about Gabby, she is always ready to walk away. I feel like more often than not, she is ready to just exit a situation, cut her losses. So I would not be surprised if that's what she did in this situation.
Well, good for her if she does that.
And she'll walk straight into Nate's arms.
Yeah, well, so that's the episode. Any other final thoughts or anything that we didn't touch on?
No. I mean, because I think we talked about the preview, right, in our predictions for the end. Or at least I talked about my predictions. I don't know whether y'all agree.
Yeah, Breezy, I want to hear your predictions.
I don't even know. I don't usually make predictions. I mean, I think that Rachel and Tina are going to get together. I'm really curious to see what he lied to her about. I didn't pick up on like the hair difference, so that'll be interesting to see. Like, I guess if your theory is right, Rachel, if it's post proposal or during the while they're still in Mexico. Gabby and Erich is really tough to call. I feel like it's going to be a game time decision. I really think Gabby's going to be deciding up until the moment because I think she really does love him. So I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this is the most dramatic finale of The Bachelor in history. So we know something. I mean, I'm laughing because I say that every season. But like I feel like there's not gonna be a happy ending with Erich or Tino. I'm not saying no happy ending at all, but with Erich or Tino. But Nate.
Yeah.
But you're right with like Erich. It's like it's really tough to tell.
Because
I could see it going both ways at this point.
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll find out.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining me today. This was a lot of fun, as always.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.